For years, I was the one who never said no, the responsible daughter, the nurse who sent money every month, the family's invisible helper. Sitting alone in the hospital break room, the fluorescent lights flickered above me, casting a sterile glow on my tired face. My scrubs felt like armor I never took off, even in my dreams. The clock read 11:43 p.m., and I was scrolling through my phone, fingers numb but restless. A text popped up from Samantha, the kind that always felt like a smile hiding a knife. "Guess you're too busy saving lives to make it to family dinner again, huh?" Cheery words, but the sting was unmistakable. I blinked back the weariness, my throat tight with the weight of unspoken things. For 15 years, I'd sent $100 every single month to my mother, Margaret, to help keep the household afloat. That's $216,000. Money I earned with blood and sweat, nursing grave patients, sacrificing my own needs without complaint. And every payment was dutifully recorded in my secret ledger, a digital journal where I logged each transfer, every phone call, all the small and large sacrifices no one else seemed to notice. Samantha's name hovered in my thoughts, not just a childhood friend, but a shadow threaded with jealousy and quiet resentment. Her smiles felt hollow, like masks hiding a brewing storm. I was exhausted, my body aching from endless shifts, but I clung stubbornly to the hope that someday, all of this would mean something, that my family would see me, not just as the giver, but as a person who deserved recognition. Yet, the knot in my stomach tightened at the thought of the next family gathering. Something in the air whispered that this time, the game might be different. My patience was fraying, my silent strength simmering beneath the surface, ready to shift. The past played out vividly in my mind, dragging me back to a Thanksgiving dinner 15 years ago, the night everything began to unravel. I was 21, fresh out of nursing school, heart full of hope and a wallet that barely stretched. That evening, I had just started sending money to help with mounting bills, eager to be the responsible daughter. The table was crowded, laughter masking old wounds. Mother, with her sharp eyes and colder smile, lavished praise on Jonathan, my older brother, calling him the smart one and our pride. My name was never mentioned. Samantha sat beside Mother, that ever-present smile fixed perfectly, but I caught a whisper, a cruel joke at my expense. I told myself they were just stressed, that they didn't see my efforts yet. I was the family's invisible backbone, the one who worked overtime, who sacrificed personal dreams to keep the household afloat. Jonathan's small achievements were celebrated, spotlighted on every occasion, while my sacrifices, financial and emotional, were swallowed by silence, the golden child and the scapegoat, clearly defined in that room. I convinced myself being the responsible one was enough, that someday they would recognize my worth. But the message was clear. I was the family ATM, expected to give without thanks, to bear the invisible weight of their needs. Over the years, my sacrifices accumulated like unseen ledger entries in my mind and on my phone. Every month, $200 transferred from my nursing salary to my mother's account, a total of $216,000 over 15 years. I paid for Jonathan's reckless car repairs, covered medical bills for Mother's ailments, and even funded Samantha's lavish vacations, all under the guise of family support. I skipped birthdays, passed on new shoes, and worked double shifts to keep the money flowing. Peter, my husband, was my quiet anchor, steady and pragmatic, always reminding me to remember my worth beyond their demands. My secret power was that digital ledger, an unyielding record of every dollar, every favor, every hurt. But despite it all, Samantha's two-faced nature persisted. She praised my kindness publicly, a false halo that concealed whispered doubts and sly manipulations behind my back. Jonathan and Mother accepted my money without a single word of thanks, their entitlement wrapped in smiles and entitlement. The family group chat was a battleground, filled with passive-aggressive comments that churned my stomach. I stared at the screen, frustration simmering beneath my skin, a burning question lodged deep. When would they see me as more than just the money? Then came the summer barbecue, the moment when invisible lines snapped. I casually mentioned a recent promotion at the hospital, pride threading my voice as I shared my accomplishment. Samantha's eyes narrowed, her laughter sharp as she cut in. "Since when did Abby become so high and mighty? Always trying to show off." Laughter bubbled around the table like a dark tide. Mother joined, her voice dripping with condescension. "She's just the money machine, remember? Never really helped around here." Jonathan smirked, arms crossed, relishing the spectacle. My cheeks burned hot and shameful as a wave of humiliation washed over me. Family friends glanced my way, their eyes uncertain, pity hidden behind polite smiles. Pain sliced through me, years of quiet sacrifice reduced to a cruel joke. But inside, I rationalized, telling myself maybe they were just jealous, or maybe I was overthinking things. I forced calm into my voice, saying, "I'm just proud of my work." The words felt small but carried a seed of doubt about my place in the family. The facade cracked, and beneath it, I no longer felt invisible, only wounded. Yet, within that hurt, a flicker of defiance sparked quietly, waiting. The moment I tried to pull back, to set a small boundary, Samantha's claws came out sharper than I ever expected. It started with whispers, subtle but poisonous, swirling through the family like smoke. "Abigail's always trying to control everything," I heard her say behind a forced smile at the last gathering. "She manipulates situations to put herself above the rest of us." Those words weren't just casual gossip. They were carefully planted seeds of doubt, broadcast to Margaret and Jonathan, whose eyes flickered with new suspicion whenever I entered the room. I caught faint glances from distant cousins and aunts, those flying monkeys Samantha must have enlisted, who now questioned my motives in hushed tones. The warmth I once felt in family events had turned into a cold, suffocating fog. Samantha's charm was weaponized with precision. When I confronted her gently, trying to explain my feelings, she twisted the narrative, accusing me of making mountains out of molehills and being too sensitive. Her voice was honeyed, but the venom was unmistakable. Text messages appeared, innocuous at first, but laced with jabs about my selfishness and neediness. On social media, subtle posts painted me as the family's problem, the one who could never just be happy. Even Margaret, who once relied on my support, began to withdraw emotionally, her words dripping with condescension. "You make it harder than it needs to be," she said one afternoon, the bitterness thick in her tone. The financial help I'd provided for years was now an unspoken burden, a chain wrapped tightly around me. Friends I trusted started pulling away, their excuses thin and hollow. Each interaction left me feeling smaller, more isolated, as if I were fading from existence while Samantha thrived on the stage she controlled. The family dynamic had shifted so suddenly, like a tide turning against me, relentless and cold. Yet, through it all, Samantha maintained her public warmth, smiling and chatting as if nothing had changed, while privately she dismantled me piece by piece. It was a cruel theater of two faces, one glowing with feigned kindness, the other sharp and unforgiving. I felt trapped in a tightening snare. My emotional labor turned into a weapon pointed at my own heart. The invisible weight on my shoulders grew heavier, and my attempts to reach out only seemed to push me further away. Despite the growing storm, I clung to a flicker of hope, a desperate wish that if I could just speak the truth, the family might see me as more than the scapegoat Samantha painted me to be. So I decided to call a family meeting, hoping that laying everything bare would clear the air. I gathered Margaret, Jonathan, and Samantha in the living room, my hands trembling slightly as I pulled out my ledger, the digital record of every dollar, every sacrifice I'd made. I spoke calmly, almost pleading. "For 15 years, I've supported this family financially. I'm not asking for thanks, just acknowledgement." I looked at each of them, searching for a flicker of understanding, but Samantha was quick to interrupt, her voice smooth and dismissive. "Abby, you're overreacting. We all contribute in our own ways." Margaret nodded, her gaze cold and dismissive. "We're family. There's no need to keep score." The distant uncle who tried to mediate seemed to side with them, brushing off my concerns as petty grievances. I felt my voice falter but pressed on. "I'm not asking for money. I just want respect." Their expressions hardened, and the room grew tense. The meeting ended with no resolution. In fact, it felt like I'd only deepened the divide. As I left, Samantha smirked, a silent signal of her victory. The hope I'd clung to dimmed, replaced by a cold resolve to protect myself, even if it meant standing alone. Jonathan's wedding was supposed to be a celebration, but it became the stage for my second, more painful humiliation. As the guests mingled under the summer sun, Margaret's public declaration cut through the chatter like a knife. "Despite all my children, only Jonathan truly supports me." Those words echoed, ignoring my presence as if I were invisible. Samantha, standing close enough for me to hear, whispered, "Typical Abby, playing the victim again." The sting was sharp and deliberate. When I tried to hand Mother a generous check for the honeymoon, she scoffed, "We don't need charity." The insults were loud and cruel, masking deep-seated contempt. Social media exploded with family photos, smiling faces and joyful moments, but I was deliberately left out of every frame. The exclusion was a calculated slap, both socially and emotionally. I caught whispers among the guests, murmurs labeling me difficult and resentful. The humiliation didn't stop there. Samantha, with her relentless thirst for control, tipped off a hospital administrator about a minor scheduling error I'd made during a chaotic shift. The mistake was blown out of proportion, damaging my professional reputation. The combined weight of public scorn and professional sabotage left my insides churning with frustration and pain. Yet, I kept my composure, swallowing the bitterness as I vowed silently to endure. This event marked a clear shift, from neglect to active assault, and the family's collusion was undeniable. In my desperation, I reached out privately to Mother, hoping for a breakthrough. I sent a message, raw and vulnerable. "Mom, I need to know if what I'm doing matters to you." Her reply was icy. "I've said everything I need to. Stop making this about money." I laid bare my emotional needs, acknowledgement, fairness, respect, offering to set boundaries if only we could work together. But Samantha intercepted my message, twisting it into a weapon. She sent a group text accusing me of playing games and trying to divide the family. Margaret refused to engage further, retreating into silence. The final blow came when Samantha publicly mocked my neediness at a hospital fundraiser right in front of colleagues and acquaintances. The humiliation was crushing, a public declaration that I was an outcast. In that moment, the painful truth crystallized. No peaceful resolution was possible. My sacrifices, my empathy, my very presence had been weaponized against me. The family's rejection was deliberate, permanent. The line had been crossed, and I stood alone on the other side, my quiet suffering exposed but my dignity intact. The path ahead was uncertain, but the ember of resolve inside me burned brighter than ever. I was no longer invisible, and I would not be silent. The fallout after the fundraiser was immediate and merciless. Whispers followed me through the hospital halls, like shadows I couldn't outrun. "Did you hear about Abigail's screw-up?" one nurse muttered, barely disguising her doubt. The seed of suspicion that Samantha had planted bloomed rapidly, spreading beyond family into my professional world. Invitations to family gatherings stopped coming without explanation. Phone calls went unanswered, and texts were ignored. Even Jonathan, whose debts I'd quietly paid off for years, stopped returning my messages. Each unanswered call tightened the grip of isolation around me. I tried to convince myself it was exhaustion clouding my perception, but the cold shoulder stung deeper than any physical wound. At Margaret's recent surgery, the sharpest cut came. I arrived early, hands trembling with a mix of hope and fatigue, carrying a small bouquet I had carefully chosen. The hospital room was sterile, the sharp scent of antiseptic mingling with the faint, uneasy hum of machines. Margaret's eyes flicked away when I reached out, and Samantha swooped in like a vulture, offering a rehearsed smile to the nurses and family. "I've got this," she declared, her voice sweet but laced with steel. I stood on the sidelines, shrinking beneath their collective gaze, my presence rendered irrelevant. Margaret's bitterness spilled out in whispered accusations. "Always stirring up drama, aren't you, Abby?" she hissed, her voice sharp enough to cut through the hospital's quiet. I wanted to scream, to beg for acknowledgement, but the words caught in my throat, swallowed by despair. Nights became a battleground in my mind. Sleep betrayed me, leaving me tangled in sheets soaked with silent tears. I replayed every sacrifice, the $100 and $200 monthly remittance, the countless skipped meals, the double shifts worked while my own health frayed. All for what? To be dismissed? To be painted as a villain in my own family's story? Peter watched me from across the room, his eyes heavy with concern. "You're fading, Abigail," he said quietly one evening, his voice breaking the silence. I nodded, feeling the truth like a weight sinking through my bones. But beneath the despair, a small ember flickered. If they refused to see my value, I would find another way to prove it. I was no longer just the hurt daughter or the invisible nurse. Something inside me shifted, a quiet awakening stirring in the depths of my exhaustion and pain. That hospital corridor, cold and unyielding, became the crucible where everything shattered. Margaret's unexpected admission turned into a public spectacle of betrayal. I arrived early, heart full of the familiar mix of worry and duty, ready to offer comfort the way I always did. Instead, I was met with a frosty dismissal. Samantha arrived moments later, radiant and poised, weaving through the nurses and family with practiced ease. Her smiles concealed the poison in her words as she whispered to Margaret, who nodded, eyes hardening. "She never truly cared," Margaret declared loudly, the accusation echoing off the sterile walls. The sting was immediate and brutal, tearing through the years of constant care I'd given. I stood frozen, the betrayal sinking like ice through my veins. Then, the cruelest twist unfolded. A nurse, unknowingly caught in the crossfire, overheard Samantha boasting in a private moment. "We finally cut Abby out," she said, voice dripping with triumph as she described the lies she'd spread to isolate me. The words were like knives, and the witnesses were many. Hospital staff who once admired me, family members whose loyalty wavered. In that harsh light, my reputation crumbled publicly, and with it, my last shreds of hope for recognition. Tears welled up, but did not fall. Instead, a cold clarity took root. The patient, the caregiver, the silent martyr. I was done with them all. Something inside me snapped, a final fracture of patience and hope. I no longer owed my family silence or sacrifice. The victim within me died in that corridor, and from the ashes rose a strategist, sharp and unyielding. In the quiet aftermath, I was left alone with my memories and my digital ledger, the unblinking record of every sacrifice and every slight. I scrolled slowly, the numbers and dates blurring into a tapestry of invisible labor and unacknowledged love. 15 years of giving, of sacrificing for a family that dismissed me, twisted my kindness into weakness to be exploited. Anger surged, sharp and consuming, burning away the exhaustion and self-doubt. I saw it clearly now. Favoritism cloaked in smiles, the poisonous undercurrent of Samantha's manipulations, Mother's cold favoritism toward Jonathan. All the invisible wounds bled into one searing truth. I had been taken for granted, silenced, erased. Yet, for the first time, I did not feel broken. I embraced the pain as fuel, the rage as resolve. "Never again," I whispered to the empty room, my voice steady and fierce. No longer would I be the family's ATM or emotional punching bag. This was my turning point, the moment I claimed my dignity through strategic silence, where words had failed me before. The weight of betrayal forged a new armor around me, cold and impenetrable. I was no longer the invisible daughter. I was the storm-gathering strength beneath the surface, ready to reclaim what was mine. The path ahead was shrouded in uncertainty, but the foundation for my silent rebellion was laid, solid and unbreakable. That night, I shared everything with Peter, my steady anchor in a sea of chaos. "No more explanations," I said, voice low but resolute. "No more apologies for being who I am." He nodded, understanding the magnitude of the shift in me. "If they want to play games," he said, "we'll change the rules." Together, we sketched a plan. Not one of confrontation, but of calculated withdrawal. Communication would be severed, financial support halted, and the consequences left to unfold on their own. Publicly, I'd maintain composure, But privately, I'd escalate the silence, letting absence speak louder than words ever could. The first step was decisive. With trembling fingers, I blocked Samantha and those complicit in the family's toxic web from my phone and social media. The digital ledger, a testament to years of overlooked sacrifice, was safely archived under Peter's watchful eye. Fear twisted in my gut, a reminder of the unknown ahead. Yet, intertwined with the fear was exhilaration, a taste of freedom I hadn't known was possible. No longer reacting out of pain, I was calculating each move, poised and unyielding. This conversation with Peter marked a new chapter, a quiet but powerful assertion of control. The road before me was uncertain, but the path was clear, silent, controlled, and resolute. I spread the spreadsheets and bank statements across the kitchen table, the soft hum of the refrigerator, the only sound punctuating the quiet chaos of numbers and dates in front of me. Each line told a story. Jonathan's car payments, Margaret's mounting medical bills, utilities no one else seemed to remember to pay. I'd been the silent guardian of these debts for years, a shadow bank keeping the family afloat without a single nod of gratitude. The weight of it settled over me again, heavy but strangely clarifying. My fingers hovered over the screen as I cross-referenced transfers with invoices, uncovering late fees quietly erased by my monthly remittances. Jonathan's name was stamped on every car loan installment I'd paid, his entitlement growing with each check I sent. Margaret's overdue hospital co-pays, too, vanished under my financial radar, her bitter thank yous never reaching me. Peter sat beside me, patient and calm, as I outlined everything to a financial advisor I trusted. Legal boundaries, they said, were firmly on my side. I had every right to halt payments if I chose, and the bank would back me up. The realization rippled through me like a shockwave. The family's comfort was precariously balanced on my invisible labor. My heart pounded as I pulled out my phone, scrolling through the messages Samantha had sent. Passive-aggressive texts disguised as concern. Social media posts subtly twisting the narrative against me, painting me as selfish and unreasonable. The duplicity stung sharper than any open confrontation. I cataloged every dependency I controlled, the utilities set up in my name, the insurance premiums funneled through my accounts, the subscriptions no one else bothered to manage. This inventory, cold and clinical, was more than just numbers. It was a map of power. Yet, beneath the financial web lay the emotional undercurrent, the vacuum my silence would create. Margaret thrived on my presence as a scapegoat, her bitterness feeding off my willingness to absorb blame. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Withdrawing wasn't just about money. It was about dismantling the emotional scaffolding they all leaned on. As I taped another printed page into my folder, a sense of grim satisfaction settled over me. The fragile house of cards was ready to collapse if I stopped propping it up. For the first time in years, I felt the scales tipping. I wasn't just a victim anymore. I was holding the keys to a silent reckoning. The quiet contemplation stretched into the night, fueling a cold confidence that steadied my shaking hands. I was ready to pull away. Behind my calm exterior, I began weaving the threads of my plan. Small, deliberate steps to carve out a protective boundary. I changed passwords on all shared family accounts, each click a quiet defiance against the invisible chains binding me. The automatic bill payments, those lifelines I'd maintained with exhausted diligence, were quietly switched off. I called the bank, asking them to freeze transfers unless I gave explicit permission. Peter helped me back up every document, every text, every bank statement onto an encrypted drive, the hum of the computer a steady heartbeat in the background. I wrote a letter, addressed to myself, a raw summary of 15 years of sacrifice, each line a boundary drawn in ink but never sent. It was my silent testament, a reminder of the woman I was becoming. At work, I wore my usual armor, steady hands, calm eyes, but the tension beneath my skin was palpable. Samantha's glances cut sharper than ever, her subtle smirks like poison-tipped darts thrown in the shadows. She had no idea the storm I was quietly conjuring, months away from the first drop of rain. I maintained the facade flawlessly, attending family gatherings with a practiced smile, though my heart clenched with each passing moment. Peter whispered reassurances when I faltered, his quiet strength a lifeline in the growing tempest. The stage was set, all vulnerabilities mapped, all defenses in place. The silence I was cultivating would speak louder than any argument, and I was ready to let it. One afternoon, an unplanned visit to my mother's house shifted everything. I was there to pick up some old photo albums when I noticed a thick envelope tucked behind the family Bible on the shelf. It was out of place, worn but recent. Hands trembling, I pulled it free and unfolded the document inside. It was a will. Not just any will. It was dated 6 months prior, signed and witnessed, explicitly naming me as the primary beneficiary of Margaret's estate. The words on the page were a jarring contradiction to the cold dismissals and public scorn I'd endured. Margaret acknowledged my years of support, the sacrifices hidden beneath the family's polished facade. My breath caught in my throat as I read the lines again, disbelief mingling with a surge of vindication. This secret document was proof that beneath her harsh words, my mother recognized my worth. Samantha's name was nowhere on the will, and there was no sign she knew of its existence. My pulse quickened with the implications. This wasn't just a family secret. It was a game changer. The power dynamic shifted beneath me, from vulnerability to leverage. I carefully photographed the pages, each click a quiet defiance, then slipped the envelope into my bag. The temptation to confront was fierce, but patience was my ally now. This revelation was a weapon I would wield with precision, timing its reveal for maximum impact. The hidden will was more than a legal document. It was a testament to my value, a shield against manipulation, and a key to reclaiming my place. The weight of it gave me a surge of hope, a renewed fire burning beneath the surface of my calm exterior. The moment I ceased all financial support was the moment the family began to unravel. I called the bank and instructed them to freeze any withdrawals from my accounts to theirs. The silence that followed was deafening. Samantha's attempts to reach me, texts laced with faux concern, calls pleading for explanations, bounced back unanswered. Jonathan's messages became desperate, Margaret's icy emails more frequent. I blocked every channel of communication from Samantha, Margaret, and Jonathan, shutting the door on their attempts to guilt or manipulate me. Peter stood by my side, his steady presence a balm against the rising storm. The initial backlash was a crashing wave, angry texts, frantic phone calls, veiled threats, but I remained unmoved. The consequences rippled through the family's carefully constructed comfort. Bills went unpaid, Jonathan's car loan installments bounced, and Margaret's medical copays piled up. The strain was immediate and undeniable, yet none of them pieced together the link to my ledger and my quiet withdrawal. Samantha's confusion grew, her influence slipping through her fingers like sand. The absence I created spoke volumes louder than any confrontation ever could. Watching from the sidelines, I felt a quiet satisfaction as tensions rose and fault lines cracked. The first phase of my strategy was unfolding perfectly, subtle but effective, a gentle quake before the inevitable landslide. The family had no idea the storm was just beginning, and I was ready to watch it unfold on my terms. Thanksgiving arrived like a loaded silence, the kind that settles heavy in a room before a storm breaks. I stepped into the Sanders dining room, my heart pounding beneath the calm I'd meticulously crafted. The familiar faces, Margaret, Jonathan, Samantha, were there, all poised and expectant. But this time, I was different. I refused their usual greetings, their gaslighting smiles, the hollow, "How are you, Abby?" that had always preceded their subtle dismissals. I sat down, my hands steady, my eyes cold but clear. The air thickened with tension. No one dared speak first. Then, without a word, I slid my phone across the polished oak table and hit AirDrop to everyone's device. A flood of files appeared, bank statements, digital receipts, payment confirmations, and, most damningly, the scanned copy of the hidden will. The room shifted palpably, like the floor had given way beneath their feet. Margaret's face drained of color, her lips pressed into a thin line of denial. Samantha's usual confident smirk faltered, the mask cracking ever so slightly. Jonathan blinked, caught off guard, his entitlement momentarily muted. I cleared my throat and spoke with a calm I barely felt inside. For 15 years, I sent $100 every month. That's $216,000 total. And here, I tapped the screen, is the will proving I'm the rightful heir. The silence that followed was suffocating, heavy with disbelief and exposure. Distant relatives and family friends, gathered for the holiday, exchanged uneasy glances. Samantha's sharp attempt to interrupt was cut short by my raised hand, an unbreakable boundary. I won't be invisible or exploited anymore, I said quietly but firmly. This silence is my strength. The words hung in the air, a declaration that shifted the power dynamic irrevocably. The public revelation was my champagne moment, the culmination of years of quiet endurance, the moment I transformed from scapegoat to a force they could no longer ignore. Behind their shocked faces, I saw the unraveling of their carefully spun narratives. Samantha's two-faced facade shattered under the scrutiny of truth, and Margaret's dismissive pride crumbled in the face of undeniable evidence. In that charged moment, my silence spoke louder than any argument ever had. The aftermath was instantaneous and merciless. Samantha's carefully constructed world began to crumble like brittle glass. Family members who had once nodded along to her lies now whispered doubts, casting sidelong glances that carried questions Samantha couldn't answer. Margaret, confronted with the will, was forced into a reluctant reassessment of her long-standing dismissals. She no longer had the luxury of ignoring the truth, though her pride still held her at a distance. Samantha bombarded me with frantic texts and calls, her tone shifting from pleading to manic, begging me to lift this deafening silence. "I'm sorry," she promised. "I'll change. Just please talk to me." But every message landed in a blocked inbox, ignored with the steady support of Peter beside me. Jonathan wavered, torn between ingrained loyalty and the undeniable reality cracking the family facade. Without my financial support, Margaret and Jonathan faced growing strain, missed payments, mounting bills, and the bitter realization that their comfort was tied to my silent sacrifice. The tension rippled through the family, sparking arguments and resentments that had long been suppressed. Samantha's social standing eroded as news of the confrontation leaked to mutual acquaintances, exposing her manipulation and leaving her isolated. I remained steadfast, my boundaries unyielding, refusing to engage in emotional blackmail or false reconciliation. The silence I wielded was no longer a burden but a weapon, one that shifted power, demanded accountability, and dismantled the toxic web they had spun for years. Samantha's desperation grew with every failed attempt to break through. In a final frantic bid to regain control, she marshaled extended family members, her flying monkeys, to confront me at work and social gatherings. They whispered rumors about my professionalism, hinting at sabotage and personal ruin, hoping to isolate me further. Threatening messages appeared, cloaked in veiled warnings that chilled me more than I let on. Samantha even targeted Peter, accusing him of enabling my cruelty, trying to drive a wedge between us. But I was prepared. Legal counsel was on standby, and every interaction was documented meticulously. I refused to respond, letting her attacks fall into the void. Slowly, family members grew weary of her toxicity, distancing themselves from the chaos she cultivated. My silence became an impenetrable shield, deflecting her venom and exposing her fragility. The once two-faced friend now stood alone, powerless against the quiet storm I had unleashed. In this measured calm, I found strength, no longer reactive, but commanding control. Clear boundaries stood firm, unbroken by manipulation or guilt. Samantha's attempts at control failed spectacularly, and with each failure, her isolation deepened. The family's narrative shifted, and I was no longer the scapegoat, but the silent architect of a new truth. Months passed, and with them, a new peace settled over my life. The family dynamic had been irrevocably altered. Margaret, weighed down by the implications of the will, maintained a cautious distance, her bitterness tempered by reluctant respect. Jonathan, humbled by reality, made tentative gestures toward reconciliation, but I held firm. I refused to be their ATM or emotional dumping ground again. Samantha's influence waned into near obscurity, her social and emotional isolation complete, her mask shattered beyond repair. My relationship with Peter deepened, rooted in mutual respect, trust, and honesty. A sanctuary from the storm I had weathered. Professionally, I thrived, unburdened by family drama, channeling my energy into my nursing work and volunteering at community health clinics where I found genuine connection and purpose. Financially secure and emotionally empowered, I reflected on the long journey, the pain endured, the betrayals absorbed, and the strength forged in silence. I learned that silence can be louder than words, I often thought, a quiet mantra that carried me forward. The toxic patterns that once defined my family were broken, replaced by boundaries and respect. I had reclaimed my worth, not through confrontation alone, but through the quiet power of steadfast resolve. A new chapter awaited, one written on my terms, filled with hope, dignity, and freedom.